leader of the largest criminal empire with politicians in his pocket, discovers his long-lost son works for Interpol. Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. The black Mercedes glided through London's rain-slicked streets, its tinted windows reflecting the neon lights of the city. Inside, Lucas Oliveira adjusted his Italian suit and gazed at the financial reports spread before him. His empire stretched across continents, legitimate businesses intertwined with a vast criminal network that had made him one of the most powerful men in Europe. "Sir, we've arrived," his driver announced as the car stopped outside an elegant restaurant nestled in Mayfair. Lucas stepped out, his commanding presence causing heads to turn. At the entrance, two men in tailored suits nodded respectfully. One whispered, "Minister Blackwood is already inside, sir." The restaurant manager rushed forward. "Mr. Oliveira, your private room is prepared." Lucas moved through the establishment with the confidence of a man who owned everything he surveyed. In many ways he did. Half the politicians in this city were in his pocket, and the other half feared him too much to stand in his way. In the private dining room, British Defence Minister Edward Blackwood rose from his seat, a practiced smile on his face. "Lucas, always a pleasure." "Edward," Lucas responded coolly, taking his seat. "Like I trust you, have considered my proposal regarding the Mediterranean shipping routes?" "I have, but there are complications. The Interpol task force," Lucas waved his hand dismissively. "Interpol has been a thorn in many sides for years, yet here we sit." "This is different," Blackwood insisted, lowering his voice. "They have assembled a new elite team. The lead investigator is making waves, brilliant, methodical, incorruptible. They are getting closer to your operations in Naples." "People who cannot be bought can still be broken," Lucas replied, signaling for wine to be poured. "What is this investigator's name?" "Dominic Foster. Young but remarkable. Oxford-educated. Military background." Something about the name caused Lucas to pause. "Show me," he demanded. Blackwood hesitated before sliding a folder across the table. Lucas opened it, and his blood turned to ice. Staring back at him was a face that triggered long-buried memories, a perfect blend of his own features and those of Isabella, the only woman he had ever truly loved. The wineglass in Lucas's hand shattered. "Sir?" Blackwood looked alarmed. Lucas barely heard him. His mind had traveled back many years to a time before he had built his empire, when he was still climbing the ranks. Isabella had been pregnant when she disappeared. He had searched for her relentlessly, only to learn she had died in childbirth. The child, he was told, had not survived. A lie. It had all been a lie. "Leave," Lucas ordered, his voice dangerously quiet. "But we haven't discussed. Now." The single word carried such menace that Blackwood gathered his belongings and departed without another word. Alone, Lucas studied the photograph more carefully. Dominic Foster, his son, not dead, but raised with a different name, a different life, and now hunting the very empire his father had built. Lucas pulled out his phone. "Find everything about Dominic Foster, everything. His home, his habits, his weaknesses, and arrange for our friend at MI6 to transfer all Interpol files on our Naples operation to me immediately." He ended the call and poured himself another glass of wine with steady hands that belied the storm raging within him. The irony was not lost on Lucas. For years he had ruthlessly eliminated anyone who threatened his position, yet now the greatest threat came from his own blood. In Geneva, Dominic Foster stood before a wall of evidence connecting threads between shipping manifests, shell companies, and suspected criminal activities. For months, He had been tracking an elusive crime syndicate that had its fingers in everything from weapons smuggling to political corruption. "You need to sleep sometime, Dom," said Rachel Chen, his partner at Interpol. She set a cup of coffee beside him. "I am close, Rach. Look at this pattern. All these seemingly unrelated businesses, but the financial structures mirror each other perfectly." Rachel studied the board. "And they all lead back to Goldcrest Holdings." "Exactly. A legitimate multinational corporation on the surface, but I believe it's the front for one of the largest criminal enterprises in Europe. The ownership is buried under layers of offshore accounts and trusts," Rachel pointed out. "But every empire has its emperor," Dominic replied, tapping a blank space at the center of his evidence board. "Someone is orchestrating all of this. Someone brilliant, patient, and absolutely ruthless." "You sound almost admiring," Rachel teased. Dominic smiled, but his eyes remained serious. "Know your enemy. Whoever this is, they've evaded law enforcement for years. They understand how the system works and how to exploit it. Like you." "I work within the system, not against it," Dominic countered. Rachel's phone buzzed. She checked it and frowned. "The Naples operation is being reassigned. Orders from above." "What?" "That's impossible. We remaking progress." "Dom, it's done. The files are being transferred to a different division." Dominic ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration evident on his handsome face. "This is happening too often. Every time we get close, something interferes. It is like someone knows our moves before we make them," Rachel finished quietly. Their eyes met in silent understanding. The implications were disturbing. A mole within Interpol, perhaps, or worse, corruption at higher levels. "We need to proceed carefully," Dominic said. "Whatever we do next stays between us." Late that night in his modest apartment, Dominic reviewed the evidence he had secretly copied before surrendering the official files. Something about this case had always felt personal, though he couldn't explain why. Raised by adoptive parents after his mother died in childbirth, Dominic had few connections to his past. His drive for justice was his defining characteristic, the need to create order in a chaotic world. His phone rang, displaying an unknown number. Normally he would ignore such calls, but instinct told him to answer. "Foster. Mr. Foster," said a cultured voice with the barest hint of an accent. "I believe we have matters to discuss regarding your Goldcrest investigation." Dominic's pulse quickened. "Who is this?" "Someone with information you need. The Naples shipping yard tomorrow night. Come alone." The line went dead. Dominic stared at the phone. It could be a trap. It probably was. But it could also be the break he needed. What he didn't know was that on the other end of that call, Lucas Oliveira had just taken the first step in a dangerous game, one that would test the bonds of blood against the weight of justice and change both their lives forever. Naples harbored many secrets beneath its picturesque facade. The ancient port city had been a crossroads of commerce, both legal and illegal, for centuries, and tonight it would witness another clandestine meeting that could alter the course of lives. Dominic arrived at the shipping yard well before the appointed time. He moved like a shadow among the stacked containers, his trained eyes scanning for threats, escape routes, potential cover. He had told no one about this meeting, not even Rachel. If this was indeed a trap, he didn't want to risk anyone else. He positioned himself with his back against a container where he could observe the meeting point while remaining partially concealed. The weight of his service weapon against his side offered small comfort. A sleek black car with diplomatic plates pulled into the yard precisely at midnight. Dominic tensed as the rear door opened and a tall figure emerged. Even from a distance, there was something commanding about the man's presence. "You can come out now, Mr. Foster," called a voice that matched the one from the phone. "If I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Dominic stepped into the open, hand near his concealed weapon. "You have information about Goldcrest Holdings." The man stepped forward, and for the first time, Dominic could make out his features in the dim light. There was something oddly familiar about them, though he was certain they had never met. "I have more than information," Lucas replied. "I have answers to questions you haven't thought to ask yet, such as why your adoption records were sealed by court order, why your mother's death certificate lacks certain details, Why, despite your exemplary record, you've been subtly blocked from advancement at every turn. Dominic felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. How do you know about my adoption? Lucas's smile didn't reach his eyes. I make it my business to know things, Mr. Foster, particularly when they concern people of interest. And why am I of interest to you? Instead of answering, Lucas reached into his jacket. Dominic's hand moved to his weapon, but Lucas merely produced a photograph and held it out. Your mother, he said simply. Dominic hesitated before taking it. The photo showed a beautiful young woman with dark hair and eyes much like his own. He had only ever seen one other picture of her, a faded image his adoptive parents had given him. Isabella Montero, Lucas continued. Brilliant, stubborn, principled to a fault. You have her eyes and her unfortunate moral compass. You knew her. It wasn't a question. Better than anyone, Lucas answered, his voice softening slightly. She was carrying my child when she disappeared. The world seemed to tilt beneath Dominic's feet. What are you saying? I think you intelligent enough to connect the dots, Dominic. Lucas studied him with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. Isabella was taken from me by rivals who feared what we could become together. By the time I found her, I was told both she and the baby had died. A convenient lie, as it turns out. I started claiming to be my father. Dominic's voice was flat, disbelieving. I am not claiming anything. I am stating a fact. Lucas took a step closer. DNA doesn't lie. I've already confirmed it. When? How? Your coffee cup from the cafe near your apartment. Careless to leave biological material unattended. Dominic's mind raced through the implications. If what this man said was true. But no, it couldn't be. The mathematical precision of his life, his values, his career, his purpose, couldn't it be built on such a fundamental lie? Even if that were true, Dominic said carefully, why reveal yourself now? Why risk exposure to an Interpol agent? Lucas smiled, and this time there was a hint of genuine amusement. Because, my boy, you were getting too close to things you don't understand. Your investigation into Goldcrest Holdings, it is impressive work. Misguided, but impressive. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. You were the one I've been hunting. I prefer to think of it as building, not hunting. I built something extraordinary from nothing. Lucas gestured around them. This shipping yard, part of my network, the same network that employs thousands, that provides stability in regions where governments have failed. And drugs, human trafficking, political corruption, are those just side benefits of your philanthropy? Dominic's voice hardened. Lucas's expression cooled. The world is not the simple place they have taught you it is. There are necessary compromises. Murder isn't a compromise. Sometimes it is justice. Lucas's eyes flashed. When your mother was taken from me, when I believed my child had been killed, what would you have done? Filled out forms, waited for legal proceedings? Some wrongs can only be addressed directly. Dominic felt sick. So what now? You expect me to ignore everything I know because of some biological connection? I expect nothing, Lucas replied. But I offer everything. Walk away from this investigation. Come work with me. Learn what real power can accomplish. The change you seek through your badge. It is nothing compared to what we could do together. You are asking me to betray everything I stand for. I am asking you to expand your understanding of what is possible. Lucas reached into his pocket and produced a small device. This contains the complete structure of my organization. Names, dates, accounts, everything you've been searching for. It also contains proof of your lineage and the truth about what happened to your mother. He held it out and Dominic stared at it, torn between duty and the desperate hunger for answers he had never acknowledged. Take it, Lucas continued. Review it. Make your decision. But know this. I protected you without knowing who you were. Now that I do, that protection will continue regardless of your choice. Protected me how? Why do you think your more promising investigations were reassigned? Why certain promotions went to others despite your superior qualifications? I couldn't risk you becoming too visible to my enemies. The implication hit Dominic like a physical blow. You've been manipulating my career, my life. Science have been ensuring your survival, Lucas corrected. This world is more dangerous than you know. A distant sound caught Lucas' attention. We don't have much time. Take this. He pressed the device into Dominic's hand. You have 3 days. Then I'll contact you for your answer. With that, Lucas turned and walked back to his car. Before getting in, he paused. One more thing. Trust no one at Interpol. Not even your partner. Especially not your partner. The car pulled away, leaving Dominic alone with a small device that suddenly weighed as heavy as the world. In his hotel suite, Lucas poured himself a drink and gazed out at the lights of Naples. The meeting had gone, not as planned, but perhaps as it should have. The shock and revulsion in his son's eyes had been expected, but beneath it, Lucas had seen curiosity, the need to know. That would be enough. His phone rang. Yes? He is on the move, reported his head of security, heading back to his hotel. And the woman, Rachel Chen, still at Interpol headquarters. Keep eyes on both of them. Report any unusual communications. Lucas ended the call and returned to the window. Meeting Dominic had affected him more than he had anticipated. The boy was truly Isabella's son, the same stubborn idealism, the same piercing gaze that seemed to cut through pretense. For a fleeting moment, Lucas wondered what life might have been like if Isabella hadn't been taken, if they had raised their son together. Would Dominic have inherited his empire willingly? Would Lucas himself have become a different man under Isabella's influence? Such thoughts were luxuries he couldn't afford. The board was set now. His son would either join him or... Lucas didn't complete the thought. Instead, he opened his laptop and checked the tracking program he had installed on the device he'd given Dominic. It showed it had already been activated. The boy was curious, at least. It was a start. Dominic sat in his darkened hotel room, staring at the screen before him. The information on the device was extraordinary, a complete map of one of the most sophisticated criminal networks he had ever encountered. With this evidence, he could bring down not just Lucas Oliveira, but dozens of corrupt officials, rival crime bosses, and facilitators across Europe. But that wasn't what held his attention now. Instead, he was transfixed by a series of old photographs and documents relating to Isabella Montero, his mother. There she was, young and laughing beside a younger version of Lucas. There were medical records documenting her pregnancy, reports filed by Lucas' men during the desperate search for her, the falsified death certificates, and most damning of all, adoption papers with signatures he recognized. His adoptive parents had known. They had always known who and what his biological father was. His phone rang, startling him from his thoughts. Rachel. Foster, he answered, trying to keep his voice neutral. Dom, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Following a lead. What's wrong? Everything wrong. Our investigation is being officially shut down. Direct orders from the top. Dominic closed his eyes. Lucas' influence, no doubt. When? Effective immediately. They are retransferring you to the Stockholm office, me to Bangkok. That is not possible. They can just... They already did, Rachel cut in. Dom, this isn't a normal reassignment. Someone very powerful wants us away from Goldcrest. I am scared. Dominic thought of Lucas' warning. Trust no one at Interpol, not even your partner. Where are you now? He asked. Still at headquarters. They were having me clear out my files tonight. Stay there, I am coming in. No, Donati, there are internal affairs people here. They re-asking questions about unauthorized investigations. Dominic glanced at the device on his desk. Rachel, listen to me carefully, go home. Pack only what you need, I'll meet you at the safe house in 2 hours. There was a pause. The Amalfi one? No, the backup, the one only you and I know about. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, 2 hours. Dominic ended the call and sat very still. Rachel had hesitated when he mentioned the backup safe house, the one that didn't exist. If she was compromised, she would report to her handlers that he was headed somewhere specific, buying him time. He closed the files on the device and slipped it into his pocket. Then he methodically gathered what he needed from the hotel room, leaving most of his belongings behind. As he prepared to leave, he caught his reflection in the mirror. His face, which had always seemed uniquely his own, now revealed echoes of Lucas Oliveira. The same jawline, the same intensity in the eyes. Genetic heritage he couldn't escape. But choices were still his to make. Rachel Chen sat in a sleek office that few Interpol agents knew existed, facing a man whose name wasn't in any official record. "He suspects," she said, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. The man, known to her only as Phillips, studied her with cold eyes. "How much does he know?" "He mentioned a safe house that doesn't exist. He is testing me." Phillips nodded. "And the Oliveira meeting, did you track him?" He disabled his phone GPS, but based on the shipping yard surveillance, they spoke for approximately 15 minutes. "An exchange was made?" Rachel nodded. "A data device of some kind." Phillips leaned back in his chair. After all these years, Lucas Oliveira finally makes contact with the son he never knew he had. Fascinating. "What do you want me to do?" Rachel asked. "Nothing has changed. Your mission remains the same. Get close to Foster. Learn what Oliveira gave him. Determine where his loyalties lie." "And if his loyalties shift to his father?" Phillips's expression hardened. "Then you eliminate him and retrieve the intelligence. Oliveira's organization has been our target for far too long to allow sentiment to interfere." Rachel nodded, ignoring the tightness in her chest. Dominic Foster was the most decent man she had ever known. The thought of betraying him, possibly worse, made her feel hollow. "Remember your oath, Agent Chen," Phillips said, sensing her hesitation. "The greater good requires difficult choices." "Yes, sir." She stood to leave. "One more thing," Phillips called after her. "If Oliveira has indeed confirmed his relationship with Foster, he'll be protective. That makes Foster valuable beyond the intelligence he may possess. You want to use him as bait, so I want to use every available asset to bring down a man who has corrupted governments across 2 continents. Don't lose sight of what's at stake here." Rachel left the office, her mind racing. The game had always been complex, but now it had become dangerous in new ways. Dominic caught between his newfound father and the agency he served. Herself caught between her duty and her growing feelings for her partner. And somewhere in the shadows, Lucas Oliveira pulled strings none of them fully understood, playing a game with his son's life, and perhaps his heart, as the ultimate prize. Lucas received the alert on his phone, just as he was concluding a video conference with his lieutenants. The tracking program showed Dominic was on the move, heading not toward Interpol headquarters, as he had claimed to Rachel Chen, but toward the coast. "Interesting. Change of plans," he told his security chief. "Prepare the yacht and send a team to monitor Agent Chen. If she makes contact with anyone from the Special Intelligence Division, I want to know immediately." As his men rushed to comply, Lucas opened a secure file on his computer. It contained everything he had learned about Dominic over the months he had been monitoring him. His habits, his preferences, his weaknesses. Every child, even an adult one, needed guidance, and guidance required understanding. What Lucas saw in these files was a young man of exceptional integrity, a trait that would normally be a liability in Lucas's world, but could be an asset if properly directed. Dominic's driving force wasn't ambition or even justice in the abstract. It was about creating order from chaos, protection for the vulnerable. Not so different from Lucas's own motivations, though their methods diverged radically. The question was whether Dominic could be brought to see that his father's empire, for all its darker elements, served a kind of order too. That sometimes protection required strength that legal systems couldn't provide. Lucas's phone buzzed again, a message from one of his informants inside Interpol. Special Intelligence Division activated. Chen reporting directly to Phillips. So, the game was even more complex than he had anticipated. Special Intelligence, the division so secret that most Interpol agents believed it was just a rumor. Their methods made Lucas's own seem almost gentle by comparison, and they had their hooks in Rachel Chen. Lucas made a call. "Change of plan. Find Foster. Get to him before Chen does and prepare the contingency." His son was walking into more danger than he knew. Whether Dominic would welcome his father as protection remained to be seen, but Lucas would provide it nonetheless. Some bonds, he had come to realize, transcended choice. The small coastal village was barely a dot on the map, exactly why Dominic had chosen it as his personal refuge. His modest villa overlooked the Mediterranean, isolated enough for privacy, but connected enough to disappear into the stream of tourists if necessary. As he navigated the winding road leading to it, his mind replayed the conversation with Lucas Oliveira, his father, over and over. Inside, Dominic secured the perimeter before setting up his laptop. The device Lucas had given him contained enough evidence to dismantle criminal networks across Europe, but it also held personal truths he was still struggling to process. His mother's face looked back at him from decades-old photographs, the same eyes he saw in the mirror every day. His secure phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You're not at the safe house." Rachel Chen voice was tense. "Neither are you," Dominic replied coolly. A pause. "You knew. I suspected. The backup safe house doesn't exist, Rachel." Her sigh was audible. "How long have you known I was reporting on you?" "I didn't. Not until Lucas Oliveira warned me not to trust anyone at Interpol, especially my partner." "Lucas Oliveira," she repeated. "So you did meet him?" Dominic said nothing. "Dom, whatever he told you." "He told me he is my father," Dominic cut in. "Unam provided DNA evidence to prove it." The silence stretched between them. "The Special Intelligence Division has been after Oliveira for years," Rachel finally said. "We knew he had a child with Isabella Montero. We didn't know it was you until recently." "We? So you admit you were part of this Special Intelligence?" "Yes," Rachel Yu's voice softened. "But my feelings for you were never part of the assignment, Dom. That was real." Dominic closed his eyes. "Or was anything between us real?" "More than you know," she whispered. "That is why I am calling to warn you. Phillips has deployed a tactical team. They are coming for you, and the intelligence Oliveira gave you." "Why tell me this? Aren't you risking your cover?" "There is no cover anymore," Rachel said. "I made my choice." "Be careful, Dom. These aren't normal agents. They operate outside standard protocols." The line went dead, leaving Dominic with a new layer of complications. If Rachel was telling the truth, he had precious little time. If she was lying, his trained instincts took over. He gathered only what was essential: the device, his weapon, a secure satellite phone. As he prepared to leave, a notification pinged on his laptop. The security system he de-installed had detected movement on the perimeter. Too late. Lucas Oliveira's yacht cut through the Mediterranean waters, its engines pushed to maximum speed. The tracking program showed Dominic had stopped moving, the signal fixed at a location on the coast. "Time to intercept?" Lucas demanded. 20 minutes, sir," his security chief replied. "But our ground team reports Special Intelligence Division operatives are already approaching the villa." Lucas cursed under his breath. "Status of Agent Chen." "She made a call to Foster's secure line 5 minutes ago. Duration 47 seconds. She is now moving toward the villa, but separately from the main SID team." Interesting. Had the woman warned his son? If so, her loyalty to her agency might be compromised. A potential asset or a more dangerous threat. "Prepare the helicopter," Lucas ordered, "and tell our ground team to create a diversion. I want SID looking the wrong way when we extract Foster." As his men rushed to comply, Lucas found himself in unfamiliar territory, genuine fear. Not for himself, but for another. This protective instinct had been dormant since Isabella's death, awakened now by the discovery of their son. Family had always been an abstract concept for Lucas, useful for business alliances, but never something that touched his core, until now. "Sir," his security chief interrupted his thoughts. "There is movement at the villa. Gunfire detected." Lucas felt his heart rate spike. "Get me there now." Dominic dove behind the kitchen counter as bullets splintered the villa's windows. He counted at least 3 separate firing positions. Professional work. They were herding him toward the back of the house. He needed to change the equation. The villa's old stone walls provided some cover as he worked his way to the utility room. There, he cut the main power line. The villa plunged into darkness just as the sun was setting. Night vision would give the tactical team an advantage, But Dominic knew something they didn't. The Villa S age meant irregular architecture, hidden spaces unknown to anyone who hadn't lived there. He slipped into a narrow passage behind the pantry, a remnant from days when servants needed to move unseen through the house. It led to a cellar with an exit that emerged in the small orchard 50 yards from the main building. As he navigated the darkness, Dominic heard the tactical team breach the front door. Their movements were disciplined, efficient, not standard Interpol procedure. These were ghost operatives, the kind whose actions would never appear in any official record. The cellar door was stiff with disuse. Dominic eased it open and peered into the gathering dusk. The orchard seemed clear, but instinct told him they would have covered this escape route. He was right. A shadow moved among the olive trees, a sentry positioned to catch anyone fleeing the house. Just one, though. Manageable. Dominic waited, timing the sentry's patrol pattern. When the figure moved behind a larger tree, he made his move, swift and silent across the open ground, then up behind the operative. A precise strike to the base of the skull, and the figure crumpled without a sound. Dominic secured the unconscious operative and appropriated their radio. "East perimeter clear," he reported, mimicking what he'd heard of the team's communication style. No response came, a good sign. They weren't expecting check-ins. Dominic was calculating his next move when a new sound cut through the night. Helicopter rotors approaching fast. Special Intelligence Division reinforcements? Or something else? The radio crackled. Unidentified helicopter approaching from the southwest. All units prepare to engage. Dominic took his chance in the momentary confusion. He sprinted toward the coastal path that wound along the cliffs. If he could reach the narrow beach below, there were caves that could provide temporary shelter. Behind him, the helicopter swept in low over the villa, its searchlight cutting bright swaths through the darkness. Gunfire erupted as the SID team engaged this new threat. Halfway down the cliff path, movement ahead stopped Dominic in his tracks. A figure emerged from the shadows, handgun raised. "Don T move," Rachel ordered, her voice carrying over the distant sounds of combat. Dominic held his position. "Which side are you on, Rachel? I'm still trying to figure that out." "I warned you, didn't I?" She kept the gun steady, but there was conflict in her eyes. "Why? If your mission was to bring me in, why warn me at all?" Rachel's expression softened momentarily. "Because what I told you was true. My feelings for you weren't part of the assignment. And now I have a choice to make." She lowered the gun slightly. "Phillips wants Oliveira's intelligence network. He doesn't care about collateral damage. Including me. Especially you. A corrupt Interpol agent. The son of Lucas Oliveira turning against his oath. That's a narrative they could use to justify expanded powers." Dominic studied her face in the dim light. "And what do you want, Rachel?" Before she could answer, the sound of approaching footsteps caused both of them to tense. Rachel made a quick decision, pushing Dominic toward a narrow side path. "Go," she whispered. Tell them you went toward the beach." Dominic caught her arm. "Come with me." Conflict flashed across her beautiful face. "I can not yet. There are things I need to finish." She pressed something into his hand, a small data drive. "Insurance. Use it if anything happens to me." Then she was gone, melting into the shadows as SID operatives approached. Dominic heard her voice carrying up from below, directing them toward the beach. He took the side path, which switched back down the cliff face before ending at a small cove hidden from casual observation. As he reached the rocky shore, the distinctive thrum of a boat engine reached his ears. A sleek craft materialized from the darkness, maneuvering close to the shoreline. A familiar figure stood at the bow. "Time to go, son," Lucas called, extending his hand. Dominic hesitated, caught between worlds. Behind him, Phillips and his SID team represented a system he had believed in, now revealed to be as corrupt as what it fought against. Ahead, the father he never knew offered escape, and complicity in everything Dominic had spent his career fighting. The sound of voices from the cliff path made the decision for him, at least temporarily. Dominic waded into the surf and climbed aboard. Lucas gripped his shoulder with surprising strength. "Smart choice. "It is not a choice," Dominic clarified as the boat accelerated away from shore. "It is a postponement." His father's smile held a hint of genuine amusement. Fair enough. The yacht's luxurious interior felt surreal after the violence Dominic had just escaped. Lucas led him to a state-of-the-art communications center where multiple screens displayed surveillance of the villa. SID operatives were conducting a thorough search, while others combed the coastline. "Your partner is quite convincing," Lucas noted, indicating a screen where Rachel was apparently reporting Dominic's escape toward a different section of coast. She risking a great deal to misdirect them. "She made her choice," Dominic said, echoing her words. "As we all must." Lucas gestured to a chair. "We have matters to discuss." Dominic remained standing. "I've reviewed the files you gave me, about the organization, about my mother." Lucas's expression softened slightly at the mention of Isabella. And I understand more than I did before, but understanding doesn't mean acceptance." "I never expected immediate acceptance," Lucas replied. "Only consideration of possibilities beyond the narrow frame you've been given. Like the possibility that some of what you do actually helps people, that your network provides stability in regions where governments have failed." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "So you did read thoroughly." "I also read about the weapons shipments to conflict zones, the political assassinations, the judges and officials whose families were threatened to secure favorable outcomes. The world is complicated." Dominic cut him off. Justify evil with complexity." Lucas studied his son with newfound respect. Even cornered, even facing truths that shattered his worldview, Dominic Foster maintained his core principles. Isabella would have been proud. "What if I told you there was a way forward that doesn't require you to compromise those principles?" Lucas asked quietly. "I'd say you're a very good liar." "I've never lied to you, Dominic, not once since we met." The simple truth in that statement gave Dominic pause. What way forward? Lucas activated a secure terminal. "My empire wasn't built overnight. It evolved, adapted to circumstances and opportunities. It can evolve again." The screen displayed a complex organizational chart. "These operations, the ones you find most objectionable, they represent approximately 30% of my total business interests. The most profitable 30%, i.e. D-wager. Indeed, but not irreplaceable." Lucas looked directly at Dominic. What if they were systematically dismantled and replaced with legitimate enterprises? A transition planned and executed over time. Dominic frowned. "You'd willingly give up power and profit?" "For the right reason, yes." Lucas's expression was unreadable. "Isabella wanted me to build something that would last, something our child could be proud of. I failed her then. Perhaps I can correct that mistake now." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I've already begun." Lucas brought up another screen showing financial transactions. "These transfers, moving assets from questionable operations to legitimate businesses. They began the day I confirmed your identity." Dominic studied the data, his analytical mind recognizing the pattern. If genuine, these movements represented billions in assets being repositioned. "This would take years," he said. "Most worthwhile things do." Lucas pulled up another file. "This, however, is more immediate. Phillips and his Special Intelligence Division. They operate without oversight, without accountability. They were as corrupt as anything they claimed to fight against." The file contained damning evidence: illegal operations, assassinations, manipulation of evidence, blackmail of public officials, all conducted under Phillips' direction. "With this, you could bring them down," Lucas continued. "A targeted strike against genuine corruption, while we work on the longer transformation." Dominic considered the proposal. It was elegant in its way, a compromise that would allow him to maintain his principles while acknowledging the complicated reality of his newfound family connection. "And Rachel?" he asked. "Agent Chen's situation is complex. Her loyalty to Phillips appears compromised by her feelings for you. That makes her vulnerable. She risked everything to warn me." "Yes," Lucas agreed. "A remarkable choice given her position." A communications officer interrupted them. "Sir, we have a situation. Agent Chen has been taken into custody by Phillips. They're retransporting her to a secure facility." Lucas watched his son's expression harden. "Now you see the real enemy," he said quietly. Dominic turned to face him. "If we do this, if I help you transform your organization, there are conditions. I would expect nothing less. Complete transparency. I see everything, question anything, veto anything that crosses ethical lines." Lucas nodded. "Agreed. I maintain my independence. No living in your world, no security details following me, no interference in my personal life. Within reason, your safety is my responsibility," Dominic finished firmly. Lucas considered this before nodding again. "What else?" "We get Rachel out. Then we take down Phillips and his division. Not for revenge, but for justice." The resemblance between them had never been more apparent than in that moment. The same determined set of jaw, the same intensity of purpose. "Done," Lucas said, extending his hand. Dominic took it, sealing a pact that would change both their lives irrevocably. Rachel Chen sat in a bare interrogation room, her wrists cuffed to the metal table. The facility was off books, a converted industrial building on the outskirts of Naples. Phillips paced before her, his normally controlled demeanor showing cracks of frustration. "You compromised years of work," he stated flatly. "For what? Some misguided infatuation?" Rachel maintained her composure. "You crossed lines, Phillips. Using Foster as bait, planning to eliminate him once he served his purpose. That is not what I signed up for." "You signed up to follow orders, to serve the greater good. By becoming what we fighting against," she challenged. Phillips leaned closer. "Oliveira's network has corrupted governments across 2 continents. It has funded terrorists, destabilized regions, destroyed countless lives. Against that scale of evil, what are our methods but necessary compromises?" The irony that he was echoing Lucas Oliveira's own justifications wasn't lost on Rachel. "Where is Foster now?" Phillips demanded. "I don't know. He escaped down the coast." "With Oliveira's intelligence files?" "Presumably." Phillips studied her, calculating. "You know, I believe you did care for him, perhaps still do, which means you still useful." The implication hung in the air between them. Rachel felt a chill of genuine fear. "Foster will contact you," Phillips continued. "When he does, you will arrange a meeting, simple as that." "And if I refuse?" Phillips smiled thinly. "I don't think you will." The door opened, and one of Phillips' operatives entered. "Sir, security breach at the perimeter." Phillips straightened. "Lock down the facility, no one in or out." As they left, Rachel tested her restraints. The cuffs were standard issue, nothing she couldn't handle with enough time. The question was whether she had that time. The facility's security was professional, but not impenetrable. Lucas's team had identified blind spots in the surveillance, creating a narrow window for infiltration. Dominic led the entry team, his intimate knowledge of Interpol protocols providing a crucial advantage. "Remember," he reminded them as they prepared to breach, "non-lethal measures only. These agents believe they serving a legitimate cause." Lucas, monitoring from a command vehicle nearby, admired his son's restraint. It wasn't how he would have handled the situation, but he respected the approach. The breach was swift and precise. Using specialized equipment provided by Lucas's technical division, they disabled the security systems long enough to enter undetected. Dominic moved through familiar corridors, guided by the facility blueprint Lucas's intelligence had procured. 2 guards outside the interrogation section were neutralized with tranquilizer rounds. Dominic accessed the control panel and located Rachel's cell on the monitors. "I have visual," he reported. "She's alone, restrained." "Phillips?" Lucas asked through the comlink. "Not visible, likely responding to the perimeter breach." Dominic checked his watch. Team 2 should be creating the secondary diversion now. On cue, alarms blared from the opposite side of the facility. Emergency protocols would draw most of the security personnel away from the interrogation section. Dominic moved quickly down the corridor, disabling the electronic lock on Rachel's door. When he entered, she looked up with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Took you long enough, she said, a ghost of a smile appearing despite her situation. "Traffic was terrible," he replied, making quick work of her restraints. She rubbed her wrists as she stood. "Phillips?" "Distracted elsewhere, but not for long." Dominic handed her a weapon. "Can you move?" Rachel checked the gun with practiced efficiency. "Lead the way." They moved through the corridor toward the exit point, encountering minimal resistance. Most of the security personnel had responded to the diversions exactly as planned. They were almost clear when a voice called out behind them. "That is far enough." Phillips stood at the intersection, weapon trained on them. Two operatives flanked him, their own weapons ready. "I am disappointed, Agent Foster," Phillips said calmly. "Choosing a criminal empire over your oath. Your mother would be ashamed." The mention of Isabella triggered something in Dominic. "You knew," he realized. "All along, you knew who I was." "Of course. Why do you think you were assigned to the Goldcrest investigation? We wanted to see if blood would tell." "You used me as bait for my own father." Phillips smiled coldly. "And now you be proven our concern justified. The son of Lucas Oliveira, turning against his oath at the first family reunion." "I haven't turned against anything that matters," Dominic replied. "Justice, truth, protection of the innocent. Those were my oath. What is yours, Phillips? Power at any cost." "Pragmatism," Phillips countered. "Something you clearly lack." He gestured to his operatives. "Take them, alive for now." What happened next occurred with such speed that later Dominic would recall it only in fragments. Rachel moved first, pushing him aside as she took aim at Phillips. The operatives fired. Rachel jerked backward, blood blooming on her shoulder. Dominic returned fire, forcing Phillips and his men into cover. He pulled Rachel into a recessed doorway, assessing her wound quickly. "Through and through," she gasped. I'll live." "Not if we stay here." Dominic keyed his comm. "We need extraction. Now." Lucas's voice came through clearly. "South corridor, 30 seconds." Covering fire erupted from both ends of the hallway as Lucas's team engaged. In the confusion, Dominic half-carried Rachel toward the extraction point. Behind them, Phillips shouted orders, his voice tight with fury. They reached the south corridor just as Lucas's extraction team breached the exterior wall, creating an exit where none had existed before. Smoke grenades filled the area, concealing their escape. Outside, a vehicle waited. Lucas himself helped Rachel inside, while his security team provided covering fire. The moment everyone was aboard, the driver accelerated away from the facility. "Status?" Lucas demanded. "She is hit, but stable," Dominic reported, applying pressure to Rachel's wound. Lucas nodded to his medical officer, who immediately began treatment. "Phillips?" "Still inside," Dominic answered. "But this isn't over." "No," Lucas agreed. "Now it begins in earnest." Sire's dawn broke over the Mediterranean as Lucas's yacht sliced through calm waters. In the ship's infirmary, Rachel rested, her wound treated and stabilized. Dominic sat beside her, their fingers intertwined. "You were right," she said softly. "About Phillips, about everything." "Not everything," Dominic corrected. "I was wrong about being able to change the system from within." Rachel studied his face. "So what now? You join your father's organization. Become what you've fought against?" "Neither," he said. "I've made a deal with Lucas. He's agreed to transform his organization, eliminate the criminal elements, transition to legitimate business." "And you believe him?" Dominic considered this. "I believe he wants to build something I can be part of, something my mother would have approved of. While we take down Phillips, justice served in all directions." Dominic squeezed her hand. "The question is, where do you stand in all this?" Rachel's smile held a trace of her old confidence. "With you. Someone needs to keep you honest." On the deck above, Lucas watched the sunrise, contemplating the rapid changes in his life. Finding his son had awakened something long dormant, a sense of legacy beyond power and control. The evidence against Phillips was already being prepared for strategic release. The corrupt division would fall, and in the vacuum that followed, opportunities would emerge. opportunities for a new kind of influence, one built on legitimacy rather than fear. The transition wouldn't be easy. Many within his organization would resist. Rivals would sense weakness and move against him. But Lucas had always excelled at adaptation, and now he had something he'd never truly had before: family to fight for. Dominic joined him on deck, the resemblance between them striking in the morning light. "She'll recover fully," Lucas observed. "Yes, she's strong." They stood in companionable silence, watching the coastline blur by. "You know this one to be simple," Lucas finally said. "The path we've chosen." "Nothing worthwhile ever is," Dominic replied. "Your mother used to say something similar." Dominic smiled slightly. "Tell me about her. Not just the facts, who she really was." For the first time in longer than he could remember, Lucas felt something close to peace as he began to share memories of Isabella. Her brilliance, her laughter, her unwavering principle. In his son's attentive gaze, he saw her living on, her best qualities merged with his own strength. Perhaps this was what she had meant about building something lasting. Not an empire of power and fear, but a legacy of transformation, of redemption. As the yacht sailed toward a new horizon, three broken people, a crime lord seeking meaning beyond power, an agent who had lost faith in the system she served, and a son caught between worlds, began to forge something unexpected from the fragments of their colliding lives. Not an ending, but a beginning. Not perfect justice, but something more nuanced, a chance to heal old wounds and create something better than what had come before. Blood ties had brought them together, but choice would determine what they built with that connection. Destruction or redemption. They had chosen redemption, the harder path, the worthier one. And for now, that was enough. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.